Welcome, Grade 7 historians. We're diving right into our explainer for the lesson titled Mesopotamia, City-States, Writing, and Law Video Overview. That's lesson ID social-ancient, social-ancient unit-02-lesson pack-02-skills and tools, source-based model video overview. I'm super thrilled you're here with us today. Look, we're not just going to sit around memorizing a bunch of dusty old names and dates. No way. Today, we're going to learn how to think like true historical detectives. We're actually going to sift through the clues left behind by one of the earliest civilizations in human history to uncover what their world was really like.
So here's our roadmap for the explainer. Number 1, myths of ancient Mesopotamia. 2, evidence, cities and cuneiform. 3, evidence, law and order. 4, application, building a CER. And finally, number 5, transfer, thinking like historians.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Myths of Ancient Mesopotamia. What do we get wrong about the land between two rivers?
Okay, so the name Mesopotamia literally means the land between the rivers in Greek. Specifically, we're talking about the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. But, because it's so incredibly ancient, a lot of legends have kind of clouded the truth over the years. What do you actually think you know about it? Like, what rumors, stories, or assumptions have you heard about this ancient society? Hold those thoughts in your mind for a second, because, well, we might just be about to break a few of them.
There are 3 massive myths we hear all the time. First up, the idea that Mesopotamia was just one single, giant, unified city. Second, there's this romantic notion that writing was invented purely so poets could write down these grand epic stories and myths. And third, the assumption that just because they had written laws, those laws meant universal fairness for everyone. Today, we're going to absolutely tear down all 3 of those myths.
And how do we tear down myths? Well, we definitely don't do it with just more stories. We do it by moving past assumptions and relying strictly on hard historical evidence. As historians, evidence is our best friend, right? It's what separates fiction from reality, which perfectly sets us up for our next section.
Moving right along to Section 2, Evidence, Cities and Cuneiform, looking at the historical record.
Let's see how the historical record completely busts our very first myth. Take a look at this timeline. Mesopotamia was never just one giant city. Actually, it was a highly dynamic region with shifting powers over thousands of years. Back in the 3000s BCE, early Sumerian city-states like Uruk and Uruk emerged. And get this, these were independent areas that were often actually warring with one another. Then, around 2300 BCE, a ruler named Sargon conquered the region and created the Akkadian Empire, which is the world's first known empire. Fast forward to 1792 BCE, and we see Hammurabi ruling the powerful Babylonian Empire. So the absolute crucial takeaway here is this: Mesopotamia was a diverse, constantly changing landscape of city-states and empires, totally not a single monolithic city.
And honestly, this next piece of evidence brilliantly illustrates the reality of their daily lives. Take a really close look at this amazing clay tablet. This is cuneiform. The Sumerians developed this script by pressing a wedge-shaped reed stylus right into wet clay. Now, it's super easy to look at this and imagine it holds some beautiful poem or a mystical myth, but the evidence tells a vastly different story about why writing was actually invented in the first place.
Time to bust our second myth. Cuneiform wasn't just invented to write down epics like the Tale of Gilgamesh. Nope. The hard evidence proves that early writing had highly practical, everyday uses. Think about it. These complex, rapidly growing city-states had thousands of people, massive agricultural food supplies, and incredibly busy merchants. They absolutely needed a way to keep track of commercial exchanges, tax receipts, payrolls, and trade. Writing was the game-changer that allowed these city-states to organize complex community life and actually manage their thriving economies.
All right, let's jump into Section 3, Evidence, Law and Order, Hammurabi's Code and Societal Rules.
Now, before we look at the laws themselves, we really need to define a crucial historical thinking skill. As history detectives, we deal in 2 main things: direct evidence and cautious inference. Direct evidence refers to the actual physical objects or texts that survive from the past, the literal things we can see and touch. Cautious inference, on the other hand, is the logical conclusion we draw from that evidence. But, and this is a big but, we have to be extremely careful not to assume more than the evidence actually proves.
Let me show you exactly how to apply this concept. The Code of Hammurabi was carved into this massive stone stele. The fact that this stone pillar exists today with 282 laws written right on it is our direct evidence. We know for an absolute fact Hammurabi published these laws. However, what can we infer? Well, we can use cautious inference to say Hammurabi wanted to organize society and establish standards. But, and this is vital to remember, just because a law is written down in stone does not mean we can prove everyone actually obeyed it or that it was enforced fairly across the land, which brings us right into our application.
This brings us to Section 4, Application, Building a CER, Claim, Evidence, Reasoning.
If you've never built a CER before, it simply stands for Claim, Evidence, and Reasoning. These are the 3 essential steps to building an airtight historical argument. Step 1. You state your claim. Step 2. You back it up with direct evidence. And finally, Step 3. You use reasoning to explain exactly how that evidence proves your claim. Let's try it out.
Let's start with Step 1. Here's our historical claim for today. Hammurabi's code maintained order, but enforced strict social inequality. We are making the claim that these laws are basically an organizational tool for a complex society and absolutely not a system of modern fairness or equality.
Okay, step 2 is evidence. Let's read the exact translations from our historical sources. Law 196 states, if a man put out the eye of another man, his eye shall be put out. Right, that's the famous eye for an eye rule you've probably heard of. But look at Law 198. If he put out the eye of a freedman, he shall pay 1 gold mina. And then check out Law 199. If he put out the eye of a man's slave, he shall pay 1/2 of its value.
Now for step 3, reasoning. This is where we connect our evidence back to our claim. The reasoning here is that the severe differences in punishments, ranging from physical mutilation to just a simple financial fine, prove that the law relied heavily on a strict class hierarchy. Punishments vary drastically depending on whether the victim was a noble, a free commoner, or an enslaved person. So while the code definitely organized a very complex community, it actively protected social tiers. It absolutely 100% did not treat everyone equally. And with that, our third myth is officially busted.
Now it's time for Section 5, Transfer. Thinking like historians. Test your skills.
Let's do a little mental exercise. Imagine you're an archaeologist. You're digging in the sands of ancient Mesopotamia, maybe in Babylon or Ur, and you excavate a ruined ziggurat. You know, one of those massive mud brick step temples built by powerful rulers. Looking at this site, what represents our direct evidence and what requires cautious inference? Just think about that for a second.
All right, let's reveal the answer. Your direct evidence is the physical stuff, right? The actual mud brick structure itself, the enormous size of its base, the baked bricks on the exterior, and its location right in the center of the city. We know the building existed, but the inference comes in when we try to understand the people. Trying to figure out the exact thoughts, the daily personal prayers, or the genuine feelings of the average commoner worshiping there, that requires very cautious inference. We have the bricks, and we have official state records, sure, but the personal, internal beliefs of everyday people aren't always set in stone.
I want to leave you with this final, truly provocative thought. Knowing what we just learned today about cautious inference, does the mere existence of a written document, like a law code or a royal decree, prove exactly how people actually lived their daily lives? I really encourage you to always question what a historical source can tell us, and just as importantly, what it cannot tell us.
You guys have done some truly incredible work today, analyzing the past like real historical detectives. This concludes our explainer. Mesopotamia, City-States, Writing and Law Video Overview. Social Ancient, Unit 2, Lesson Pack 2, Skills and Tools, Source-Based Model Video Overview.